Next up, when we select a topic, let's say birds, we'll navigate through to a new page, and we also want to be able to communicate that new topic to that new page. So we need a way to effectively communicate the data in the application between widgets and have our widgets UI update in response to changing data. So to help us manage the changing state of our application, we'll use the provider package. So the first step is look up provider in pub.dev and then grab the dependency. So copy this here and let's paste that in pubspec.yaml, add in the package, paste this under google.fonts and then run pub-get. So to get this working, we're first going to create a class which will define a set of variables, and then provider will provide an instance of that class throughout our widget tree. So let's get this in place. So the first step is let's create a class. I'm going to put this in a directory which I'll name notifiers, and I'm going to create a new Dart file which I'll name Flashcards notifier. And the reason I'm naming this notifier is because this class will extend a change notifier. So I'll write class Flashcards notifier and then extends change notifier. So this change notifier, separate from the provider package, but it will work with the provider package, and this will allow us to call a method, notify listeners, which will dispatch a change notification to any widgets that are listening. Let's set up our provider so we can expose this throughout our project. So to do that, we'll go to main, and we want to create our provider right at the top of our widget tree. So I'll wrap my app with a multi-provider, and we're using multi-provider because, as the name suggests, we'll be setting up a few provider objects throughout this project. So this is the first one. So we have a list of providers, and to set this up, create our first object. We'll write create, we can just put an underscore, we do not need to access the context, use the arrow syntax, and then we can just point to Flashcards notifier. Cool, so that's done. So now any widgets in our widget tree can access Flashcards notifier, can read values, update values, and listen to values. Cool, so now that's done. Let's go to Flashcards notifier. I'll press Control B, and let's define our first variable. So as mentioned earlier, we want to be able to communicate what topic was selected when we navigate through to the new page. So in this case, I'm going to create a variable of type string. I'll name this topic, and I'll just initialize this as an empty string. And I'm also going to create a method named setTopic. This will be required string topic. So this method will set the topic whenever it's called, and to reference this variable we just created, I'll use this keyword. This topic is equal to the topic that we pass in to this method, and then after that we'll call notify listeners. So that's from the change notifier class, which will dispatch a change notification to any of our listeners. Cool. Okay, so now that's set up. So now let's call this method. So in our methods, when we load a session, this is a good place to call that. So to do that, we first write provider, import the provider package, provider of context, and then in angle brackets, we'll put in the object we want to access, which is Flashcards notifier. And then here we can access that method, setTopic. So we need to pass in topic here. So let's create that as a required argument for this method. Okay, cool. So we can access the Flashcards notifier by using the static of method on our provider. And lastly, because we do not need to listen to changes, I'm going to pass in false to the listen property here, and we may get an exception at runtime if we don't do that. All right, cool. So we have our provider. So when we call this method, our provider will access this object, call this method, and pass in the value of our topic. So in our topic tile, we just need to update this method here. So we pass in the topic, and here we have the topic, so we can just pass that straight in. So the last step is, if we go to Flashcard's page, so this is the actual widget that we want to update when our topic value changes. So to do that, I'm going to wrap the scaffold in the consumer class from the provider package. In angle brackets, we'll pass in Flashcard's notifier. So this is the object that we want to listen to for change notifications. And then consumer has a builder. Write that in, and it's only the middle parameter we care about. So I'll put an underscore and a double underscore for the first and third parameters, and then just point to the scaffold here and import the provider. So our consumer will listen to Flashcard's notifier. When we get a notification of a change, the builder will run and update the widget tree. So therefore, we can update the UI. So here, let's update the title. So title, use the text widget and notifier. And now we can access the topic. All right, cool. So we have our puzzle all completed. We have our change notifier class. Provider will expose that object throughout our widget tree, and then we can listen to it from wherever we want using a consumer, which will rebuild the widget tree when it receives a change notification, and we can update the UI. So let's test this out. We will do a hot restart. Let's click on insects. Okay, cool. So we now have insects displayed in our new page. And if we go back, we'll just test this again. And we have drinks displayed. Okay, cool. So we have our provider imported, and we have a good way to manage the changing state of our app.